Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're taking a look at Qanba's new arcade buttons, the Gravity. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, I purchased my Gravity buttons through Arcade Shock and I've had quite a bit of time to take a look at them. They do seem to have a pretty lofty goal. Their goal is to make the best push button on the market in every aspect. Performance, reliability, and the ease of installation. Over a 2-year span, numerous revisions were made to achieve these goals. So let's see if the buttons live up to this hype. The buttons I ordered are clear black in color. I didn't really care about the color too much. I just wanted to try out these buttons. On the top, there is a sticker to protect it from scratches, which is a really nice touch. As of right now, snap-in buttons for the Gravity are not available. They're only available in the screw button, which I'm absolutely okay with. I love screw buttons. It's easy to tell that this is a Gravity button just based on the bottom because Gravity is printed right on it. You can also see that there's a PCB soldered directly to the micro switch. In terms of the nut size, it's almost the exact same size as the Seimitsu PS14. In fact, when I stack them on top of each other, they're pretty much identical. The threads are different though. The PS14 screw cap does not fit on the Gravity button. For comparison's sake, we have the Gravity button on the left with the Sanwa OBSF on the right. You can see that the Gravity button is shallower than the Sanwa button, which will give you some extra room in your fight stick. Here is the Gravity beside a Hori Hayabusa. The Hayabusa is thinner. And here is the Gravity beside a Gamerfinger. You can see the Gamerfinger is also thinner. On the right we have the Gravity, and on the left here we have the Seimitsu PS14. The Gravity is thinner. In terms of depth inside the fight stick, the Gravity button will require about 3 inches of space. Now, taking apart the Gravity for a better look, and I noticed that the cap came off very easily. We'll go over this in just a minute. The cap is held on by 4 different posts. The micro switch on the inside is very thick. I've seen a couple other videos where the micro switch was held on by a rubber grommet, but that is definitely not the case here. This is held on by plastic clips. If for some reason you need to take apart the Gravity, just be careful because these clips are thin and can break very easily. Here's a closer look at the micro switch. The brand is Omron. There is a post in the center and the switch is built all around that center post. There's also a tiny PCB soldered right onto the bottom. Just to have some fun here, I yanked out the micro switches from a few different buttons. On the left we have a Seimitsu PS14, then we have a Cherry MX Blue from a Gamerfinger button. In the center we have a Hori Hayabusa. On to the right of that we have a Sanwa, and on the far right we have our Qanba Gravity. Here's the Seimitsu PS14 beside the Gravity. Here's the Hori Hayabusa. Here is the Cherry MX Blue. And here is Sanwa. In terms of surface area, the Qanba has a ton more than traditional micro switches. Here it is side by side with the Cherry MX switch, and you can see that the Cherry MX switch looks tiny in comparison. The closest thing that I could find to it was a Kale Box Red switch. And even side by side here, the Gravity button is a lot larger. And just for reference here, from a movement perspective, the Kale Box Red is almost the exact same as the Gravity. It is worth noting that the Gravity is a linear switch, so there is no audible click. It's very smooth. Now, before I reassemble the Gravity button, there is one thing I want to point out. When compared with a Kale low profile switch here, the Gravity button has more travel distance. This tells me that the Gravity button might not be as quick as that low profile switch. Now, I'm not sure if this is just my Gravity buttons or if all Gravity buttons are like this, but there is one. I think this might be a minor problem. The top pops off very easily. And this happened more than once. As soon as I stuck a screwdriver in there, the top almost immediately popped off. In fact, I was also just able to use my fingers and pull it right out. And just to show you why I think this might be problematic, here's me putting a lot of force on the button just to make sure that it is attached properly. And then I can use my hands here and just pull the top off, which really doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. On a side note here, I picked up some silencing pads from Arcade Shock, so I'll give you a listen between a silenced Gravity button and a normal one. Now, for those that are curious, in terms of width here, the Gravity takes up about the exact same amount of space inside the fight stick as a standard screw button. Now let's do a quick sound test to compare a few different buttons. In terms of sensitivity, I wouldn't necessarily say that the gravity buttons are the most sensitive buttons out there. There's a little bit of play before the micro switch engages, and there's a little bit of play after the micro switch engages. There's quite a bit of travel here. For comparison, here is a Gamerfinger using a Cherry MX Speed Silver, and I would argue that this might be a little bit quicker. And here's a Sanwa OBSF. Now, if we take a look at the technical specs, this is where things get even more interesting. On Qanba's official website, they say that the gravity buttons have a 1.5mm throw distance, and I'm reading that as 1.5mm until the button activates. In comparison here, I think Sanwa is supposed to be 1.2mm. The Cherry MX Speed Silvers are 1.2mm, which are both better. And the Cherry MX Reds, I think, are 2mm. So these are definitely not the quickest out there. Now, moving on to how hard you have to press the buttons down in order to activate the switch, Qanba states that they require 50 grams of pressure. In comparison here, the Sanwa OBSF requires 50 grams of pressure. Now, Sanwa does vary from button to button. I've seen some as low as like 35, some maybe higher around 65 or 70. It kind of depends. Sanwa quality seems to be all over the place in that regard. And for Cherry MX, their Speed Silvers require 45 grams, which are easier to press down. Now, oddly enough, Qanba's site says these buttons have a shorter throw than traditional arcade buttons for a lightning fast response, and through my testing, I don't agree with that. As for durability, what Qanba claims here completely blows the competition out of the water, and it's not even close. Qanba claims that these buttons are good for 70 million activations. In comparison, Cherry MX switches, they're good for 50 million. And Sanwa OBSFs, they're good for a whopping 1 million. So yes, this is pretty impressive. Now, moving on to the price of the gravity buttons, Qanba has them listed for $5.90 each, but I did find them for cheaper in Arcade Shock, between $4.25 and $5.25 depending on your color. These are a couple bucks more than a standard Sanwa button, but Qanba says they will last you 70 times longer. Now, the price of these is in line with other buttons with good micro switches. Crown Sam Dux's are priced at $4.50, and there is a DIY Sanwa solution here. It's $2.25 plus a button plunger on top of a Sanwa button, which rounds it out to close to the same price. So now for my overall opinion on the Qanba Gravity. First and foremost, this is an amazing button, and I think it's the best button that Qanba has ever created, but I don't think it's perfect. There are a couple of things here that I would change about this button. The first thing is the plunger. I do think the plunger sits a little bit too high off of the base. I would shave this down a little bit, create a lower profile button. It might feel a little bit more responsive. The second thing I would change is clipping the cap to the base. I was able just to pull it off with my hands, and that was really unsettling. And the third thing I would change here is the throw distance. They have it listed at 1.5mm until the button activates. I would shorten that up to about 1.2mm. The button here would feel fast and responsive, and in my opinion, if they made those changes, this would probably be one of the best buttons on the market. But anyways, that is all I've got for this video. Let me know your thoughts about the Qanba Gravity in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions about it. On top of that, if you're wondering whether or not you should pick one of these up, they're not that expensive, try one out. I would say it's definitely worth a try at the very least. See if you like it, form your own opinions. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Thank you everyone, take care.